Hey, this is Shaun with the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, powered by Go Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com, where you can get yourself a hoodie or a hat. And today we are talking to Dr. Patrick Cohn of Peak Performance Sports. This is mental training for peak performance. That's called mental toughness for those of you that don't get it. In this case, we are going to talk about the top 4 mental skills that a tennis player needs. So, top 4 mental skills. Doc, I'm going to put you on the spot. Not 5 skills, not 3 skills, but these are the top 4. Do you want to just list them, or do we want to go through one by one and talk about them? Where do you want to start today?
Well, we could do top 10 if you want, John, but
We'll stick with 4.
I don't
Four's
know
a
if
good number.
we have that much time. So let me start with number 1, having a routine, a pre-match routine. Number 2 would be focusing on the process. We call that, focusing on one point at a time. Number 3 is bringing a healthy dose of confidence to the match. We call that proactive confidence. And then number 4 is trusting in the strokes that you have that day, instead of trying to manufacture strokes or trying to be perfect with your strokes. So any tennis player, any athlete can benefit from those 4 mental skills.
Okay, so start with the first one. Routine. What do you mean? Is that what we talked about in a few weeks ago, where it's like my serve routine? It is the thing that I do to remind me that I'm doing it correctly?
I'm talking about the pre-match, what you do to get ready.
Oh,
Instead
okay.
of out of the car, onto the court. You're doing your stretching, maybe a little bit of footwork. You're warming up your serve. You're hitting some ground strokes. That's the physical aspect of the routine. What most people don't understand is there's a whole mental part of that allows you to be confident, focused, and in a composed state when you take the court. So that's super important. And some of the things that we're going to talk about today, the other mental skills, can be integrated into that mental preparation routine. It could be as simple as visualizing some serves, or visualizing some patterns that you might want to use, or visualizing how you and your partner are going to play the doubles match in terms of strategy. So there's many different things that you can do, but it's really just getting your head screwed on and getting focused and getting your plan squared away in your head about how you want to play the match, whether it's singles or doubles.
So pre-match routine. That makes me think of a conversation I had with Stuart Sink years and years ago, and he talked about the golfer needing to be out of bed, what was it, 4 hours before their tee time. And it made me think, well, what if you have a 7 a.m. tee time? Are you seriously getting out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning? He says, yes, that's how it works. You work with golfers as well. Can you expand on that for me?
Absolutely. They have an extended routine. They'll arrive, like Phil Mickelson might arrive an hour and a half prior to his tee time, maybe even earlier. And he'll go and he'll do his stretching, maybe get a little massage going on, get his equipment ready. Then they go through a specific routine where they might go through their odd clubs on the range, and then they'll go and hit some drivers, and then they'll go to the putting green. They'll warm up their putter and their touch on the greens that day. They might hit some chip shots. So they get everything ready, but they also think about how they're going to play the golf course, what is the game plan, and they might visualize the first 3 holes, for example.
Gotcha. And I try to do that. I would bet a lot of social tennis players don't do that. The league players, we see this a lot. The match starts at 9 a.m. We roll in at 8:59, maybe 9:01, and we get out of the car and we say, hey, we're on time. And my thought is no, because you're still in the car. But then you walk up and you kind of chat for a minute. You put your shoes on, 9:15. You start your, quote, warm-up. And in that case, that's what, 5, 7 minutes on the court hitting back and forth? That's just not a good pre-match routine.
Yeah, you do have to spend some time between life and the game. And you have to get your heart rate up, and you want to warm up your strokes, but you also want to warm up your mind as well and get that ready. So that's what really goes into that. And there's many skills, from visualization to focusing to your confidence to your game plan, that can be integrated into that warm-up routine.
Got it. All right. So routine was first. What's number 2?
is focusing on the process.
So the process is different from the routine?
Yes, it is. Thank you. So when we talk about focusing on the process, it not only applies to the warm-up routine, but it really applies to one point at a time. If you double faulted on that last serve, are you going to take that into the next point and think about, well, don't double fault again? That's not focusing on the process. That's not starting new. That's not starting the point fresh. So you have to start the point fresh every time. Now there's one caveat to that, and that is what's working for you in terms of strategy needs to be integrated and developed into that as well. If you know out wide is working for you, then obviously that needs to be integrated. So that's the one caveat that I talk about with players. Likewise, you don't want to get ahead. You know, if you have add in or add out, you're not thinking about, oh, if I lose this game, I'm going to go down, 1-2 or something like that. You want to basically, another way to say it is be in the moment. Focusing on the process is our terminology for being in the moment, playing one point, but it's really tinier than that. It's one shot at a time. It's one ball at a time. Get your serve in, then you play your next ball, and certainly there might be some patterns or strategy associated with that process, but it's really just focusing on the ball and playing that one ball at a time. If you miss hit, you semi-shank something, but it goes in. You don't judge that while you're trying to hit your next shot. You can't have that split focus.
Gotcha. So now we're on court. So the routine that we're talking about is that pre-match routine. Now we're on court, which is focusing on the process, which is a bit of that trusting that you've done the work. You've got to trust in your preparation and believe that your strategy is good and that your pre-match routine has you prepared for today.
I would integrate that into the pre-match, but
Okay.
the focus is where you put your focus on each point.
As I'm hitting the ball.
Staying in the moment. Yes, staying in the moment. Correct.
Got it. So in that case, in addition, we go to number 3 then, which is confidence. So how does that filter in from I believe in my pre-match routine, I know it works, and I believe in that focus, and I'm in the moment, and I'm here. How do I remind myself that I'm good at this?
So we have a saying, confidence can be fragile for athletes, even professionals. Just this morning, I was talking to one of my veterans out there on the tour. He's pretty much 59 years old. He's playing on the Champions Tour. And he said, even for us, confidence can be fragile, right? So the mistake that players make is they'll go out there and they'll wait until something goes good. They'll wait until they win the first game. They'll wait until they see how their shots feel, how they're coming off the racket, or if they're going in the court deep, to decide whether they're going to be confident or not. And that's what we call a backseat approach to confidence. So we talk about proactive confidence as bringing a healthy dose of confidence. And that can come from several areas, but it can come from knowing you have physical talent. It can come from your practice routines. It can come from your self-talk. It can come from your knowing you have a good game plan for your opponent. Many different ways that you can kind of what we call fuel up your confidence before the match.
Fuel up the confidence. I like that, because you can't do that by winning something, because you can't do that until you've won something, and you can't do that by just telling yourself I'm good and I'm going to win. Is that too simple of a thought process to just manufacture the confidence, or is a mantra like that actually going to be useful?
Well, it's a difference between my warm-up was awful and I'm going to lose this match big. That thought process is obviously not going to help you play well.
Seen that before.
Versus the warm-up felt good. My strokes are what they are. I'm going to go out and use what I have today to the best of my ability. Much different thought process, two opposing mindsets when you step on the court. And that's all we're talking about, is make sure that you're not going out there with a lot of negative thoughts about your game and about losing and about outcome and those type of things.
My father used to tell me when I was a kid, he said the phrase in your mind has to be a positive one instead of a negative one. You have to come out and say, make the first serve, as opposed to don't double fault.
Exactly. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Double fault. So
Yes.
it's just that positive affirmation a bit, not even maybe visualization even as well as picturing kind of, can you have that ethereal zoom out of a good match? Is that even possible intellectually while you're also still being in the moment?
I think so. I mean, you always have your strategy about, how you're going to play the match, but we call it focusing on what you want to do instead of what you want to avoid. So that's more of the fear. Yeah. When you're focusing on avoiding, don't hit it in the net. Don't hit it long. Don't miss the serve, right? Don't miss this volley. You're focusing on what you don't want to do. And that just leads to tension and lack of confidence rather than focusing on what you want to do with each and every ball.
Got it. All right. So in sticking with confidence, I got one more curiosity, I would guess. I've got a rule. I said we have a family rule we call rule number 4, which is compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today.
Love it.
The point of view is the reminder in tennis is sometimes you have that player that you don't think you can beat. If I'm going to go out and play against Novak Djokovic, pretty sure I'm going to lose that match. How do I have confidence anyway in my own abilities and say, the match isn't over yet, there's still a chance against a potentially better player? Is that even possible?
Well, yeah, of course. It's a different yardstick, I think. It's, I've worked with many juniors over the years, including my own daughter, and it's the notion that, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to win as many games as I can off of this quality player, and that's going to be a win for me. If I can win 2 or 3 games, that may sound like negative thinking, but it keeps that player in the game when they're down 4-0, right, in the first set. So you can change the yardstick, or maybe it's just, I want to hit the shots I'm capable of that day. I'm going to go out and swing freely and use the shots I have today, and then I can come off. I gave my best effort. I was swinging freely. I was using my shots. I just got beat by a better player, and that happens. That's okay.
Yeah, instead of, don't lose or don't make a fool of myself, I've got to find some way to picture what I am capable of and try to be in that, which takes us next to the number 4, which is trust in your stroke. So I've got to believe I'm at least capable of something, even if it's not winning the match. That sounded negative.
So trust is a little bit different in our vernacular. So
okay.
Confidence is believing that you can execute your strokes, knowing that you can hit the ball deep in the court. That forehand cross court, I know I can hit that deep in the court. I've done it before, right? Trust in your skills is more about relying on your muscle memory or your motor memory to do it. So on one hand, I can think about the motion I want like a practice and try to manufacture that stroke. On the other hand, I can just think about the target and swing to the target. And that's ideal when you're playing a match, is let go of the stroke technique and the mechanics and think about targets and tactics. That's what I tell players all the time. Targets and tactics. Your strokes are what they are that day when you wake up. So no amount of focusing on making good strokes is really going to help you. It can hinder you because then you can start fiddling around with your stroke. Now, an instructor might disagree with this concept, but that's what we teach in the mental game. Work on your strokes and your repetition in practice, and then when you go play, think about your trajectory and your target, and trust that your body can automatically produce that shot.
And I think that's good advice. I think most coaches, and I'll say most coaches know not to send their players out working on something unless that is the goal of that match. And we're going to consider that a practice match. But if I'm in a match for $1 million, which I never am, but if I'm in a match that's just, this is tennis and it's time to play, I've got to believe I've put in the work. If I haven't, I have to believe whatever I have is what I have. Do what you can with what you have where you are, right?
Exactly. Exactly. You're not practicing your strokes while you're playing. You're trying to think about your tactics, where you want to take the ball, and maybe visualizing the shot you want to hit and executing it. Because you only have a split second when the ball comes over the net to just see the shot you want and hit it.
See ball, hit ball. So I've got my pre-match routine is number one, is a skill that I need as a tennis player. I've got my focus on the process, which is after I'm on the court. I'm going to trust in the choices that I've made, or is focused. I'm mixing the words now. So I've got a pre-match routine that I'm going to do. That's part of the schedule. I've got to focus on the process. I've got to be confident, and I've got to trust the strokes. Are those words chosen specifically because focus is different than being confident, and being confident is different than trusting my strokes?
Was that me or you
No,
that
I don't
froze
know.
up?
You're back. Did you hear my where I am with it? We can cut that out. That's not a problem. But yeah, it looks like I'm still on. I don't know what happened.
You were doing a summary of the four skills, and
Okay.
then it froze after the first one on me.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'll start that again. So my question is, I've got the summary of the four. So I've got my pre-match routine, which is something I do that comes from my coaches, that comes from the plan to get myself ready, and that's a function. That's just something I do. Hopefully, I believe in it. But I've got my focus on the process once I get on the court. I'm asking about the words specifically as kind of my last question, which is I'm going to focus on the process. I'm going to be confident, and I'm going to trust in my strokes. Those three words are different in a very specific way as to how I think about what I'm doing.
Absolutely. And we teach those skills every day to tennis players, junior tennis players, and also, adult league players.
So focus, be, and trust of the three. So do. So we'll start with do is the routine, the pre-match routine. So do, focus, be, trust. Those are those words that say, okay, those are my four skills that I need. By the time I start my pre-match routine on a weekend tennis match, something as simple as get there a few minutes early, get your heart rate up, like Doc said. It's get yourself in that routine where you're actually ready to play, so you're not down a set and a break by the time you decide to figure out, hey, I actually do feel pretty good today.
Well, and reduce injuries too. You want to be, get the body going and flexible, and to reduce injuries as well. That's not my shtick, but I know that's important.
And the best advice potentially is, hey, you know what? This also reduces injuries. My wife's
Yes.
going to love that plan. I like that a lot. Doc, I appreciate it. This has been Mental Toughness. No, I always want to call it mental toughness, but this is mental training. Mental training for peak performance. And today we covered the four skills needed by tennis players. Doc, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
You got it, Sean.